Welcome to another broadcast of Habits and Money.
Pitch Deck 101 LLC out of New York do more than just support our clients to pitch their businesses to investors access working capital at 0% APR. We also support our clients to grow and scale their businesses faster and cash flow optimize. Pitch Deck 101 LLC recent partnership with 10X Branding Marketing LLC and Global Capital Inc. out of the USA has enabled us to form unique partnership with multiple financial institutions, which means we can do even more to accelerate the success of our clients. Let Pitch Deck 101 LLC give you the support you need to pitch to investors, access capital, access new markets and grow and scale your business. Contact us now on 332-235-1099 for a free consultation.
Today I have an exceptional talent with me. His name is Ryan Williams. And what makes Ryan Williams so exceptional is based on the fact that he started a business from zero and he scaled that business up to a multiple seven-figure operation. He sold that business and he is now preparing to repeat that process again. Ryan is exceptional talent in the IT field, and he has so many other expertise with him. And what I want you to do is to listen to this great mind. I want you to call a friend and tell a friend. I want you to share this podcast with your friend because he also loves working with young people. He wants to empower young people to be great in entrepreneurship. He is preparing now to get out to face the world as a keynote speaker and so much more. All right, so do join me in welcoming Ryan Williams on Habits and Money. Ryan, it's such a pleasure to have you here today. I want us to talk a little bit about yourself. You became a major player in the IT space. You build a seven-figure business. You sell that seven-figure business. You position yourself as a successful entrepreneur, a millionaire. But I wanted to leave that part for just now. We're going to come to that just now. Yeah, you started off.
I was going to say, just worth noting, the business is a social media business, not an IT business.
Oh, a social media business. Well, got you. You started off in IT. At the age of 18, you went to do an apprenticeship. Can you talk to us about your exposure to IT?
Yeah, so it was something I did at school and at sixth form, and I didn't really find in its guise at school. It wasn't really that interesting. It was all very theory driven, as was like business studies as well, which I didn't really get engaged with. But I found that there was a flyer come through my door for an apprenticeship in IT, which was completely flipped it on its head. It was actually fixing computers, fixing servers, learning how to actually do that in like a 9-10 month crash course. And at that point, I'd opted not to go to university because I didn't feel it was where my skill set lay. I'm not the most academic driven, or I'm not the most articulate as things like that. But I was a doer, I was a player, I was a tinkerer kind of thing. And I like my current home computer was in the days when you were constantly upgrading them. You were putting a new graphics card in for Windows 95, 98, 2000, all that. So I was always playing with my computer at home, helping build it. So this apprenticeship came in, and it was just something that really, one of them, like, it aligned with what I was wanting to do. And within that, they taught you lots of practical skills like Microsoft Server, actual physical, how to install an operating system, how to fix a computer, etc. And then what they did with that, though, they also designed your CV. They trained you in job interviews for the real world and helped you get a job, which they did at the end of that 9 months. And it ended up being a fantastic job.
So you did pretty much like what the Steve Jobs did, the Bill Gates and Elon Musk. I mean, these guys, step out of college, they went behind their career, they followed their passion, and they made it big. You're not far off because you have started that business. You have been a major hit with your social media platform. You spend a large part of your life, a large part of your business practice doing social media management. Can you talk to us about a little bit about what that experience is like and what's like for you?
Yeah, so that started I was still working in IT, but in around 2013, the birth of my first daughter, was up late at night as you are with a baby, and I just started to play it was when Twitter was in its infancy and it was the growth boom. So I started to just create Twitter accounts, and I'm a big football fan. So within the football Twitter space, I started to make funny little accounts here and there, just joke accounts about current ongoing football, and I started to dip my realm into the parody world, which is like mocking people or like looking at football clubs and football teams at a funny light and things like that. And I was watching Sky Sports one night, and the Memories program came on. So I watched it, and it was just showing like old football headlines from the 90s and things like that. And I just had this idea to put them on Twitter as if they were happening now, kind of thing, or happening then. So I was just posting old headlines like Alan Shearer signs for Newcastle and things like that. But because it was just it hit a novel idea and people started to like it and laugh about it. They were enjoying the nostalgia. Then they got into a space of tricking the friends, because I would do subtle headlines that was a player signing for someone else, even though it had happened years ago and they thought it was happening again. And it just hit a real community. And that account is what I call my eureka moment. It got like 60, 70,000 followers within 6-7 months. And that really got me into a community on that Twitter account space that was used by people like Stephen Bartlett and Dominic McGregor and the Lad Bible and Sport Bible teams. They were all in that space creating social media accounts at that time, and I got into that space, and it was in a community with like on group chats and messaging. So this was kind of into 2014, 2015. And I was still happily working in my IT job, but I was getting approached by companies to pay to retweet things, pay to promote betting was quite big then. So set myself up as a betting company. I was doing things on like a side on the side. It was earning okay. It was like paying for a few holidays and things like that, but it was still nothing I ever saw as a main career. It was I was still IT driven. I was taking the exams every year in my workplace, getting more and more skilled up. And then the switch kind of happened 2015 onwards. I created this Twitter account called Deluded Brendan, which was a parody of the Liverpool manager at the time. And Liverpool are one of the biggest clubs in the world. So the audience that I hit there was huge.
I'm going to come to the 2015 just now, but I want us to play a little bit with the fact that you became a social media sensation. You started this Twitter account, and in a very short period of time, you were able to attract 60,000 following, 70,000 following. How did this happen? Was this your intent? Because of course you have an IT background. Perhaps you were using some of your secret sauce to, navigate Twitter. Can you talk to us? How did this happen?
So I was trying to crack it, because I always think if I look back on how many Twitter accounts I created, I probably created hundreds, and it wasn't every one was a success, and I'd had 3 or 4 before I got this successful one. And it was in a space where I was looking at, when I mentioned the other big companies, there was accounts that were growing and getting bigger, and I thought I saw that and I thought I want some of that. Like I enjoyed it. And as you say, with the IT background, working, fixing things and messing with things and tinkering with things and creating things, I think it just went hand in hand, and obviously got some creative part of my brain that just it was really synonymous with creating Twitter accounts, and it allowed me to be creativity. And I think at the time as well, what was interesting was my first daughter was born, so she struggled sleeping like many babies do, and it was almost like a bit of an escape for me. It was something I just like doing, it was like another world. They were all parody accounts. They were behind, so it was growing and getting the engagement and messing with things, and it was just like a bit of escape for me. That's why it started as a hobby.
Got you.
Essential Care Pharmacy, providing more than your healthcare needs. Get the best in muscle-building products, health supplement products, beauty care products, medical supplies, colognes and cosmetics, blood pressure testing kits. Access our medical doctors, and so much more. Essential Care Pharmacy, your leading healthcare provider.
But what I've recognized is that you became a social media sensation. You grow your platform from 60,000 to 70,000 to 300,000+ persons who are following you. You didn't stop there, Ryan. You went on to form partnership. You built a team that had over 2 million followers strong. You didn't stop there.
No.
You went to start a business. But just before we come to 2015, when you start the business, can you tell us what was your thinking like to say, hey, I have this level of success, but I don't want to stop here. I want to form strategic partnership and to grow this thing even bigger and make even larger impact? Because that's a very unique way of thinking. It's a very creative way of thinking. It's a very entrepreneurial way of thinking. What do you think led you down this path? What fashioned that way of thinking to, hey, say to yourself, let's go partnership, let's go collaborate, let's go build network?
Yeah, so it was that hunger for growth. And I actually got approached around that time by Stephen Bartlett's company. I've still got emails in my inbox from him and his business partner, Dom, from that were, their model was they were buying Twitter accounts like mine and then hiring the people who own the accounts to run them, and their company would own the accounts, but they'd have the people running. It was a great model. And at the time they approached me and I thought, oh, that's interesting, but no, I still at that point kind of didn't think there's no career. I'm not giving up my IT career for a few Twitter accounts, and it could be all done in 2 years and I've stepped away. So, but I kept my eye on those, and like I said, there's another big company called Lad Bible. I got offered a job kind of working in their sport team as well. And again, these were building, I went into their offices in Manchester at this point, and I'm looking around going, wow, like there's some serious business here. Like they've got full, it was like you used to see Google and things like that in the States. Like this is what was happening in Manchester. The weeks went by and I got talking to 2 other people in that space who were individuals themselves. And it was like, if these other big companies are doing it, can we do it? If we get our heads together and combine our three minds, 3 followings. And that's when you mentioned the 2 million part. Together we had 2 million followers and 3 creative brains. We were just like seeing these others in the space grow in the space they were growing. We're like, well, let's have a go. But we knew we needed to move slightly away from the sport field. The sport Twitter accounts were great, but they were only take us so far. So we made a page called It's Gone Viral, which was allowing us to post viral content, funny dogs, cats, people falling over, the news. We could post anything. And then that was what we took onto Facebook at that point, because that was where Facebook was really in its infancy of growth too. That allowed to get I've got to about 1 million followers really quickly on its own. And then this was the vehicle that we were making money from, which allowed me to, as 3 of us, that my other 2 business partners, they worked for themselves anyway. So they were just, it was their life. Whereas me, I had an IT job, I had a mortgage, I had a young child. I couldn't just not do that. So, but when we kind of established It's Gone Viral, it allowed us to sit down and say, this can pay me now, so I can go and do it. And I was offering a couple of hours a day in between my job on the page. And it was like, if I can work on this page 7 or 8 hours a day, then think of the growth we're going to have, think of the earnings. And that was a big driver. So it was, whilst I always look back, it was a risk to quit my job. I always think it was calculated, it was planned. It wasn't just on a whim. I believed that I would grow that page enough to pay our salaries.
Good. I really think that's some genius. I think every young person today that, navigate the social media platform, the Instagram, the Twitter, their ultimate game is to really get the following. And it was very genius of you, to really leverage your knowledge, your skill set to make this happen. What you have also did as you build out the large following, you quickly figure out how to monetize and that entire platform. That again is another great move. But let me look at what I call the master play. You took yourself and 2 others came together. You think tank, you brainstorm, you come up with a great idea. You started a business in 2015. That business would have employed between 30 to 50 persons. Phenomenal. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the business activities was like and what it was to you, to manage, first by managing yourself, now that major shift to manage between 30 to 50 person. Talk to us about, what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, so when I first stepped away from the IT job, it was just us 3. And one of the big first targets was to make sure this vehicle was earning money to pay my salary initially, so I think that was a real big driver for myself. So it didn't allow me just to, because the old thought of working from home back then was sat in your pajamas watching television all day. It was nothing like that. I actually ended up working longer and harder just to know that the target was to pay the bills. And then from that, when we was established processes, so I was doing like the content creation, the memes, the pictures, the sharing and the networking, like with people, along with the business partners, of course. And then, so when we first monetized was through a website, through what Donald Trump so called out as to be clickbait eventually, but it was those websites, they were literally driven to drive clicks for the Google ads. So that was what was paying the bills. And when that became established, we started to work out what an article was earning. We worked out we could then hire a writer, a freelance writer, and then we brought them in-house. We had a couple of writers in initially, and then within that I was like, we'd made one page, and I'm like, well, this one page is great, but we want other genres. So we did like a pet page, a lifestyle page, a gaming page, and I'm one person, I couldn't run all those. So it was like, right, okay, we need to bring a couple of editors in. So we brought them editors in to start making the content. And then at that point, it starts quickly scaling up of like, and you've got kind of look after the HR, then you're looking after the accountancy, then you're paying them, you start becoming different. And then this was, so that was kind of moving nicely, and it allowed us to, so we had like 4 or 5 members of staff, including ourselves, just beavering away nicely. And then Facebook had a moment in about 2017, 2018 that we were always building towards, was they turned advertisements on the video. So you're like on YouTube where you do the skip ads. Facebook started to follow suit with that. And at that point, we had a network of like 4 or 5 million followers, and all of a sudden Facebook were monetizing all our videos on there. And that was another big eureka moment where, yeah, because we could see the bigger pages in the space were starting to get these adverts. So we were like, if it starts filtering out to us, we're laughing, and it did. And that was a real scalable model, because we knew if we produce 4 videos from 4 video editors, it's going to earn us X. So it was a real scalable model. So we knew we had 20 video editors producing 100 pieces of content. That's going to earn you $200,000, like whatever. So it was the first time we properly had a tangible result, because followers are great, but it was always hard to measure what that was worth. But as soon as we started to monetize the video, we scaled up massively. And then as we carried on scaling,
that was really great. As I listen to you, I'm seeing you are deploying some major business moves here, because first of all, you create the audience. Then second, you observe that you have an audience base that has different interests, and then you start to create content to appeal to each of those interests. You did pets, for dogs and for cats and for sports and recreation. You start to build out all of these different content to really play into the interests of your viewers. And then you went a step further. You start to now connect with the sponsors that wants to reach those specific demographics, and you monetize the whole process and create predictable outcome. That's some genius, Ryan. That is some genius. The average person, struggle to make that kind of move, but you see an opportunity and you just, wow, you went at it, further. But you were speaking and I caught you a little bit. You want to continue that trend of thoughts before I ask the next question?
Yeah, so then from that, we had a small office, which was so Manchester was the main hub, as I mentioned. Our first office was in like the outskirts. So it was out of town. So we had at that point about 8 to 10 members of staff, and we were trying to hire more people, but it was finding that they wouldn't travel out of town, or the people we even had working for us lived in the town. So we thought, well, we're going to have to move into Manchester here, because it was going to allow us to hire more people and get bigger space, which happened. It was the overheads were more for the rental and for everything else, but the talent that we got access to and the staff we hired, the output was better and greater. And so it ended up, whilst the overheads were higher, the income flew through the roof when we got to Manchester. So that was great. And then what we scoped out from that is we had all these editors doing the in-house brands. So we're like, well, we can do this for other brands. So we then built an agency arm, which was your typical agency model of our staff members doing the content for other businesses, for their marketing. And then within that space as well, while we were dealing in viral video, there was a big space called in licensing. So every video that you see out there is owned by someone, and it's usually owned by companies. And because we were dealing with so many viral videos, we could then license them. We could make money from them. We could make money for the end user. For us, it was just a great model. So we had 3 really good models. And this was, like I say, the new office was back end of 2019 into 2020. And then that was when the pandemic came crashing down on everyone.
Yeah. So you build the business up into a multiple 7-figure business. And after you built it up, in 2022, you sold in your business. Can you talk to us about what did it feel like to know that, hey, you spent a few years building a business from ground, building up a global audience on your platform, helping many businesses, many brands to go viral because you had multiple of million persons following you. It was easy to send your client viral, but then you now sell it. How did it feel to become a millionaire in the cash?
Yeah. Well, it's been life-changing, and the exit came from a space of post-pandemic. There was ups and downs during the pandemic. We ended up growing really nicely from it, but at times they were stressful. And again, because I talk about at the very start of the journey, we started on Twitter accounts on my phone with my baby in one hand. Yeah, I started the Twitter account on my phone, my baby in one hand, tweeting in the other, and I'd gone from that to fast forward 9 years, being offered millions for the business. It was a no-brainer for me. it was just, I couldn't turn it down, and I'm not a gambler, and the business had got to a space where I was really proud of its size, but I was no longer as hands-on as I used to be. I enjoyed the early days of the business where I was doing more, I was doing the creation, and suddenly I'd found my days were board meetings, strategy meetings, there were appraisals, there were this, there were that. And when we had the offer, it was just kind of too good to turn down.
Okay. Now that you have sold, I know that you're now rethinking. You had time to think about your next great moves. We're going to come to that just now. All right. What are some of the future plans? But just before we get to the next great things that you want to do, I recognize that you have a tremendous passion in working with young people. You want to spend time working with young people to empower them about business and entrepreneurship, and you want to share your journey and your experience with them. Can you talk to us a little bit about that passion?
Yeah, sure. So,
and why you really want to help young people? Go ahead.
Yes. So it's come from a space of, when I look back at my journey and my school journey, whilst I was never a naughty child or anything, but I was never, as I got older, was never the most academically driven. And when I left my sixth form, I felt, because I didn't choose to go to university, my school looked down on me a little bit, because they're all very driven to have everyone to go as an undergraduate. And I got a D in business studies. If you think about that now, I should never have been a businessman. I should never have been an entrepreneur. But I think there's a big difference between entrepreneurship and business studies, because the entrepreneurship is the doing, the endeavor, the passion. And you hear this story from a lot of entrepreneurs who didn't get their formal qualifications, but when it comes to actually pulling it off in their life, they've done it. So I'd like to bridge that gap of people. Like, universities are fantastic. They're always going to exist for your doctors, your nurses, for everything else is great. But for those kids who might drop out of the system or not know what they want to do, that's why I'd love to kind of get involved more and more, which I'm doing at a small degree, but it's something, as my presence grows, I'm quite passionate in scaling up, essentially.
Elevate your business with 10X Branding and Marketing LLC. Our expert team specializes in enhancing your brand's visibility and connecting you with your ideal clients. We employ strategies that increase reach, leaving a lasting impact and driving client conversion. Trust and credibility are vital in businesses, and excel in building them even with a limited budget. Our cost-effective approaches ensure you get the best results without overspending. Ready to boost your business cash flow? Contact us at 332-235-T99 and let 10X Branding and Marketing LLC guide you to success. Our focus is on elevating your visibility, which directly translates to growth. Experience the power of effective branding and marketing with us, and witness your business thrive.
Okay. We'll talk about that some more also, because I know what you're doing. You're attempting now to connect with other great minds in business that can provide the support, but we'll talk about that shortly. I missed out something to mention, because the pandemic hit, I think, was in 2020 and went all the way up to 2022. But I saw that also all through that pandemic, you did well for yourself. The business sustained itself, and you continue to grow. And I think that that's a testimony of your leadership style, your will to succeed, and your ability to get out there and make things happen. So I want to acknowledge that and say kudos to you. I recognize, Ryan, that you are also a trustee on the board and looking over a sports club. Can you share with us a little bit about what that experience is like? I see you like working with young people. You love working in sports. You definitely have a thing for business. Talk to us about what this experience is like for you, being on a trustee on the board, the sports board.
Well, yes. So what it is, many people will not have heard of them, but the club's called Oldham Athletic. They used to be a lot bigger in the 90s, but I've supported them all my life, very passionate. And where we are at the moment is we're quite lower down in the leagues here in England. We've just got a new owner who over the next few years we're hoping can take us bigger again. Not quite on the Wrexham levels, but it's a similar story. But I got asked to go on the community trust board when I first exited, and that's the side that delivers the school provisions. It delivers the soccer schools, that looks after the community. They play football, and they have a ladies football team. They have a disabled football team, and so I got asked to come on the trustee board on a voluntary basis to help with their the media output, the marketing, the comms, because it's a charity, so it's run at a trust level. And so I work with a few of the staff members on that side of things. And just being part of a football club, even if it is the community side that I love, it's kind of an honour. It was just a real passion piece that was really nice to go together. And I still, when I have meetings at the football stadium now, I still feel honoured when I walk through. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I really think in life is important to give back. I think charity is an essential part of business, an essential part of life. So again, I want to say, kudos to you for giving back to society. Ryan, one of your passion is to position yourself to build a brand as a keynote speaker. And we talked about this. I do believe that the ability to tell your story, the experience that you would have had alone, I do believe it can inspire so many young people and people across the world that it is possible. Because sometimes you believe that, you need to have your master's and your doctorate to start thinking big and going after big things. And sometimes when you have that, I see people are still going paycheck to paycheck. But you take the little information that you would have had and you leverage that information to build a multi-seven-figure business. Today you are a millionaire and you're now focusing on keynote speaking. Can you talk to us about your vision as a keynote speaker? I know we talk about this, we talk about having your books and having all of those other stuff, but talk to us about, the level of impact that you want to create as a keynote speaker.
So yeah, it's something that when I first exited the business it was November 2022. I suppose I suffered when I look into it more a little bit like of the imposter syndrome. I didn't believe or I didn't understand just the scale of what I'd done. So I was a little bit, and I'd not done any personal branding for myself. So it was, no one knew like me. So but then the more and more people I spoke to about my story, like I did a local business breakfast when I first exited in an interview forum, and everyone come up to me after going, that's phenomenal. Like, because I always thought keynote speaking was like teaching, like you have to be teaching something on slides and I soon realized that it's not, it's motivational speaking. So I went on a journey from that point of more and more confidence, work with a local guy around near me with the delivery of it, with the getting better at the public speaking. Because if you'd have said to me 3 or 4 years ago I'd go on to do public speaking, I'd have said you're mad. So it's been a nice journey. I've done it a few times now and I just really enjoy it. And the way I've got my keynote set out is with similar to what I've just told there, but I have it as like the stories on the slides and take it through the journey. It's people, I've done it a few times now, people come up to me at the end and they're just like, their eyes light up and they say, that's absolutely phenomenal. And I'm quite a humble and real guy, and I think that's why I've not sold myself too much because it's kind of, I'm realizing that humble doesn't necessarily sell. If you're not going to get your name out there by never talking about it, but I really come at an angle of, if he's done it, so can I, because I just did it with endeavour, with wit, and it was all, I think, and I always forget to mention as well, we completely bootstrapped the business ourselves. It's not like we were a startup. It's not like I had a rich father or any of us had rich parents who put £100,000 in to get us going. We self-funded ourselves all the way through until the investment exit, of course. There's that, because I've worked with people on a smaller scale now, helping them with the social media and things, but even on a business level of just the basic, as you say, cash flow and things like that. And so, but telling my story on the stage is just something I really enjoy doing, and both to small, medium business owners and to students as well. Like, I've even kind of done talks as young as primary age, which over in England is from 6 to 10, and I've done a really basic presentation that's like what a business is, and even I use Fortnite, the game, as an example. As one of the biggest businesses in the world, and one of the head teachers came up to me and said, "You just talk to them on a level that they get." Like, there was a few kids in there who were usually climbing the walls, who sat and listened to every word. Yeah, and it was really nice feedback. So it's a world that I really want to do more of. It's just getting myself out there and more forums like this.
Awesome.
Essential Care Pharmacy, providing more than your healthcare needs. Get the best in muscle building products, health supplement products, beauty care products, medical supplies, colognes and cosmetics, blood pressure testing kits. Access our medical doctors, and so much more. Essential Care Pharmacy, your leading healthcare provider.
We'll talk more about this in the next interview. I know we are currently talking about not only you telling your story, but having the book that helps you to tell your story and really positioning you and your books to really impact young people and impact people. Because I do believe that you have a solid story. You bootstrap your way getting into business. You elevate that business into a major success story that made you a millionaire today. So that is a story to tell. But we'll talk more about that perhaps in the next interview. Brian, I want to spend some time talking to you now about habits, habits that pushes you forward, habits that pulls you back. So the first question on that point that I want to put to you is, what are habits that influences success? So as you look back at your life, your work ethics, what are those habits that you think really set you up for success?
So there was one thing I know I was relentless in the early days of me and one of the other business partners. We had a saying that was like never stop. And as funny as it sounds, it was what we meant there was we were constantly doing, we were never settled. And it was much to my wife's headache sometimes that I couldn't just turn off at 5 o'clock because I left a 9 to 5 job to run my own business that ended up being more hours. But that was because every time I'd see a piece of breaking news, either in the sport world, in the main world, I'd be diving onto my phone, I'd be making a post about it. And I was unrelenting. I was no stone left unturned. And another habit I think was.
But just before you go, how did your wife handle that? Because I had similar experience, at the start of my business, my wife had wanted to actually choke my neck because she said, you only focusing on the business, you have no time for the family. How did your wife cope with that?
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. She'd go up for a job at one point because we had a second child. We couldn't juggle the business. So she stepped away from work, which I'll always be grateful for. She's a huge driver in supporting me. But like I say, at times it was just calm down and enjoy yourself kind of thing. But I think because she was quite interested, she could see where the success was coming in. So she could see that I wasn't just running myself into the ground for nothing. It wasn't a dead end. It wasn't a damp squib or anything.
She saw potential.
Yeah.
Potential.
And I always said, these first few years I'll be all right. And then once we made it, I'll have my feet up, which, never happened.
Yeah, definitely. So I can talk about, I identify with you, first of all. We can see some of the challenges, and then you can see the success and the big smile on her face now because your effort now delivered the results. But Ryan, talk to me about success. How would you define success? Many persons I'm talking to today say success is freedom. Success is financial independence. Success is having family and being able to mentor and coach them. How would you define success as a major player in business?
So I think you hit it on the third point there. For me, success is just seeing my family happy. Like from the exit money, like I took them to Lapland to see Father Christmas on like a magical holiday. We're going to Florida in a few weeks. We're going to Maldives next year. We're making memories. I've got 2 young daughters who I just want to give them the best possible life. And that's not necessarily materialistic in this aspect. It's more making the memories, going to the amazing places. Because I've got a funny story. There's a program over here on Channel 5 called Rich House, Poor House. And they feature a rich entrepreneur or a rich person and someone who's not earning that much, and they swap them. They do a swap. So they rang me whether I wanted to go on that, and I initially said, well, yeah, it could be quite good for the personal brand to get my face on television, etc. But when they did a tour of my house wasn't big enough for them, they said. But we haven't moved. We haven't gone and bought a big 6-bed mansion. What we're doing is, rather than the big house and up here, we're going around the world with the kids. So yeah, success for me is just seeing my family happy. Like, it's one of the reasons my why was always them, even though you forget that sometimes. That's what it always was. Yes, so that's money's great. Obviously, it makes the world go around and it makes things a lot easier. But I'd almost, if my children weren't happy, then the money wouldn't mean anything. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree with you. You may have money and still be sad, but I think when you have family around you, and that you're leaving your footprint that inspired them to be great. I mean, that trumps everything else. That's the icing on the cake. Talk to me a little bit about. Would you say that you have a blueprint for success? if you do, what does that blueprint looks like? Or do you just, talk to us a little bit? Do you have a blueprint for success?
And yeah, it's an interesting one because people do ask that, and I just look at the values that I stand by. As talk about like in the bigger picture, like the working hard, being unrelenting, and resilience is a big one. That's one I always say to young people: is you have your really tough days, but it's how you bounce back from them. Take a risk, but you can take risks in a calculated fashion. You can look at doing things. You don't have to. It doesn't all have to be silly, jumping here, there, and everywhere. It can be researched, and yeah, I'm a big believer in looking at a market, at a niche, and whatever. And it's not copying homework, but it's you can see what's out there already. No one's asking you to invent a wheel every single time, but you can look what's out there and think, I can do that better, or I could do that this way, or and yeah. So it's just I'm a big believer in effort. Like nothing comes to you with your feet up like that. Lottery wins are lucky. Business isn't. I don't think there's been any successful business owner or entrepreneur that's lucky in my eyes. It's all been
Well, yeah, I agree. This is Success Leave Clues. And I do believe that, spending time to really look at those clues, as you did mention, look at life, see what's happening. There are a lot of information out there that can really set you up for success. Ryan, as we look at your life today, you're successful in more ways than one. You have a family that you care a lot about. That in of itself is success. You started a business, scaled the business, and that is of itself a success. You've exited the business. You're now a millionaire based on the exit, and that in of itself is success. But when the average person looks at you, they may say to themselves, you had the red carpet rolled out to you, and they tend to idealize success, not knowing that you're a person too, and you too had to go through challenges. Can we talk a little bit about the challenges that you had to overcome to be as successful as you are today? You talk about bootstrapping, you talk about many other things, but help us to understand some of those challenges that you went through, you stood up to, and you faced it, and you win at the end of the day. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, but one of the biggest ones that always springs to mind with that is, so when I talked about how we monetized on Facebook, it was from the adverts coming on the videos. So at the one point of the business, that was about 70-80% of our income. So we always sat as a board and said, look, we can't constantly depend on Facebook for the rest of the time. It's a third party, anything can happen. So we tried to diverse. That's why we tried to do an agency. We tried to get retainer clients, but the Facebook world was just so big. It was earning so much, so it was hard not to keep hammering away at that. And then when the pandemic happened, Facebook sent a message out. They turned the advertising off. So essentially, we were there in the April, May of the pandemic, very early. 70% of our income had gone. It had just gone. And at this point, we had 30-40 members of staff all working from home in the bedrooms. And what we had done, we'd always had like what we call our rainy day fund. We had a bank account that was there, and it had 3 to 4 months of emergency funds in there. So we sat down as a board, we discussed all the options, very obviously slight panic, slight level-headed. We all helped each other. We targeted ourselves, and we looked into why has the advertising been turned off. And Facebook gave the reasoning. They said it was lack of originality, when essentially it was the pandemic. So people were no longer paying Facebook to advertise, so Facebook couldn't pay out to publishers like ourselves. But Facebook wouldn't admit that, so they sent out a message saying, "Oh, you've got to make your videos more original. You need to do this, and this." And it was you have to have a voiceover on your videos. You have to make them original. You have to do this. You have to do that. So we looked at all them and was like, right, to do that, we need to hire a freelance commentator, essentially. So we went onto the relevant websites, and we actually brought in someone on a freelance basis. Our guys they'd edit the videos, but then they'd send them to this person who sat in their bedroom with a microphone and a camera. And there was lots of that. And then we got in contact with Facebook, which wasn't easy. That was messaging here, messaging there, messaging everyone, LinkedIn, Instagram. Just that. Finally got in touch with them, told them they were doing all these things, and then after about 8 weeks, the advertisements came back on. And so I think out of the whole thing, we furloughed 2 people, which I don't know if it was the same in the US, but in England, it was you could put people on in the pandemic. The government could pay them, but they couldn't work. So we only did that to 2 members of staff. Which
they had the PPP program, the paycheck protection program.
Yeah, so we only had to do that to 2 that were on a gaming page, which was already wasn't the best, so we used that, but the rest we kept as is. And because we kept as is, we kept pumping the same content out, the pages they grew and grew and grew, because during the pandemic, social media consumption went through the roof. So the growth went like that, but the earnings went like that. But and then when it turned back on, the earnings were here because the pages were even bigger. So it's always a really, what I mentioned when people say, "Oh, you just had it easy in the pandemic." We had the output easy, but the actual monetization tool wasn't. Like, even staff members at the time to this day don't realize just what was going on in the background of us scrambling around trying to fix things. So yeah.
Outside of Facebook monetization, were you able to diversify your income stream?
Yeah, so I know by the time I left, we was on Snapchat, and TikTok had become a thing. There was more. There was a big thing of like talent managers, so talent management. So a lot of influencer marketing, essentially, because we had obviously the in-house expertise of creating viral video. We was creating them for these influencers, essentially. Yeah, there was very. I think at the point of leaving, it was still very much driven from Californian earnings, essentially, like from Silicon Valley. But it was all, yeah. So what they've done since, I'm not too sure, but yeah.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit as you look back at the past. Sometimes challenges that you see in your life, they hold you back, and sometimes they push you forward. And do you have regrets as you look back at your past? And would you say that those regrets are holding you back, or are they pushing you forward?
No, I don't think I have any regrets, really. There's things on a micro level where members of staff, maybe at the time, me being young myself, didn't necessarily deal with the correct way. So kind of on small little levels like that, maybe little regrets. But on the bigger picture, no regrets at all, really. So it was, when I sold the business, I was ready to leave as well. It wasn't like it was taken away from me or anything. It was all my decision. So yeah, I don't believe in dwelling either. Like, things happen for a reason, and they will happen for a reason in the future. So it's just how you roll with it.
Okay. We are about to wrap up our program today, but I just have a few more questions that I want us to look at. What impact do you want to make in the world, and how do you want to be remembered?
I want to inspire the next wave of entrepreneurs or young people. One lasting legacy I'd like to do. So I love a bigger picture of something like the Ryan T. Williams Academy kind of thing. That's my next thing. I want to do things now in my name. I spent years building other brands, and now I want it to be in my name, really. And yeah, so inspire the next wave of young entrepreneurs, I think.
Okay, so I would want to say that the next major move is to perhaps definitely put some energy behind the Ryan T. Williams Academy. What are some of the programs you envision Ryan T. Williams Academy? I know it's not formal yet. I know we are think tanking that. But what are some of the programs that you would really like to see that Academy is bringing to the young audience? And I love it because I do believe that young people are the future. And sometimes we talk about young people as the future, but then we don't pass the baton. What you are doing, you have so much of experience doing what you're doing. You have so much of success doing what you're doing. Now you're passing that baton over to young people now. Tell us about some of the programs that, you would like to see.
Yeah, so I think it'd come in. I think I'd love like the one-to-one mentoring would be absolutely fantastic, and even at a bigger level or teaching them, because it's hard because we have an education system here in the UK that is teaching business. I think we could teach it real life a little bit more, and I think a big part of that is going into schools, because I think if I look back, if I was in business studies now as a student, and someone like myself or not just me, a successful entrepreneur came in, relatively young, I think like I'd have been there like, oh wow, that's what business is. It's not. I think that we have The Apprentice over here in the UK and things like that. That seems to drive what business is, and it's not really. And so yeah, I think it'd be a mixture of teaching them entrepreneurism.
You're right.
Yeah,
right, and you're perfectly correct. I do believe that the way academics is set up, in most parts of the world, many institutions is they focus a lot on the theory, and then you find that a lot has changed from the time the textbook was written to how things are done today. And because the theory is not really coincided with the practical world, when students graduate and get into the real world of work, they recognize that some of what they're applying is not really relevant. So there is a need for what I would want to call practical learning. Perhaps your academy can play a major role in this regard.
That's the dream.
And we'll definitely talk some more about it. All right. There's two questions, but I'm going to skip them because the next question I was going to ask you, how important is access to capital to moving your business forward? I do believe that you have some chains to throw a rug into your business. So I'm going to skip that question unless you want to give a shot at it, because perhaps you might be thinking about, working with equity partners, which you have done in previous times. But let me put this to you, to grow any vision, access to capital is important. Is it important to you now that you're a millionaire, or, is it not a problem? Talk to me about how you see that.
It's really important because I'll hold my hands up here. When I first exited the business, I went and worked with a PR company, obviously naming no names, and they were quite expensive retainer, and I didn't get it. Was to build my personal brand, and it ended up being the wrong company for the wrong fit. I spent a lot of money and didn't get anything from it. And that was me investing in myself and getting it wrong. So I haven't got an infinite pot. I'm seeing myself as a startup now. So, I look after if I was advising myself, I would start to say, well, get to a point where you just can't keep investing without anything coming back in. So yeah, it isn't an infinite pot at all. So capital it's always very important, and it's important how you spend it. And sometimes it's weird being my own investor is a strange one, because I haven't got anyone to answer to, which is probably not a good thing sometimes. Like probably, yeah. So
Got you. Last question. But just before I get to the question, when you decide now to bring your brand to the US, we are prepared to come alongside you and ensure that we can help you access all the funding to grow and scale in the US market. But of course, we'll talk some more about that. The last question that I want to put to you is a simple question. Some may say tricky question. What are essential money habits to have?
It seems so obvious, but a lot of people do get it wrong. Don't spend more than you're earning. Like it's kind of a simple.
I like that.
But I look at things very, very granular. But I think what I did actually went back at the pandemic. If you're running a business, if you can, not everybody can, but if you can, try and just have that little bit of a rainy day fund or, like you say, an overdraft that you're confident with, or whatever. Just something that you think things are going well, but things can go wrong very quickly. Like we saw with a global pandemic that came out of nowhere. Like it's never quite safe. So it's great being lean and being close to your in and outs, but sometimes it only takes 2 bad months and you're in that red. So if you can, even as you would in your personal life with your salary putting into a savings, try and do that with your business as well. Try and build yourself a business savings pot for that way. And then worst case, you've got access to a nice little pot of money in a few years. But if not, you've got your backup and you're not ringing the bank for a loan. So
all right, Ryan, I must say it has been a pleasure talking with you today. I love your rich story. You bootstrap in starting your business. You scale that business up into a multi-7-figure business. You exit that business. You're now a millionaire, and you're now setting out to go and touch and transform the lives of young people. I really must say it has been such a pleasure talking with you. I know this is our first interview, not the last, because I really want to tap into your knowledge and really, bring your knowledge, your brand, your vision to the world. So thanks again for spending the time with us today, and looking forward to talking with you more in the future.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Pitch Deck 101 LLC out of New York. Do more than just support our clients to pitch their businesses to investors access working capital at 0% APR. We also support our clients to grow and scale their businesses faster and cash flow optimize. Pitch Deck 101 LLC recent partnership with 10X Branding Marketing LLC and Global Capital Inc. out of the USA has enabled us to form unique partnership with multiple financial institutions, which means we can do even more to accelerate the success of our clients. Let Pitch Deck 101 LLC give you the support you need to pitch to investors, access capital, access new markets, and grow and scale your business. Contact us now on 332-235-1099 for a free consultation.